close your eyes and imagine for a moment that you are no longer surrounded by the gentle hum of modern machines, the quiet ticking of a wall clock, or the faint glow of a smartphone screen. Instead, you awaken on a bed of straw, wrapped in coarse linen, the faint morning chill slipping through a gap in the wooden shutters. Outside, the distant tolling of a bell marks the beginning of another day, not in your world, but in one long past. This is not a dream, not entirely. You have awoken in the Middle Ages. The year might be 1325, or perhaps 1473. Precise dates don't matter here, for time flows differently in this world, slower, more deliberate, woven with rhythms dictated not by electricity or algorithms, but by seasons, church bells, and the rising of the sun. In this journey, you will not be a lord, a knight, or a queen. No, you are someone far more common and, thus, far more representative of the time. A villager, a tenant, a face in the tapestry of medieval daily life. You'll walk narrow muddy paths, breathe in wood smoke and livestock, and learn to live by rhythms almost entirely foreign to the modern mind. This world is both simpler and harder. Its sounds are fewer but sharper. Its colours are duller but richer in texture. There are no phones, no engines, no rushing from place to place. But there is labour, constant and unrelenting. There is devotion often rigid, but deeply felt. And there is a sense of timelessness, of being part of something larger and older than oneself. Let yourself be carried gently into this world. Let the ancient rhythms lull your thoughts as we begin our slow and steady walk through a life very different, yet still faintly human. You wake just before dawn, not because you've set an alarm, but because the rooster's crow echoes through the village like a living clock. Outside, the mist still clings low to the fields. A thin chill clutches the earth, and everything is damp from the wooden beams of your cottage to the coarse woolen tunic you wear. The roof above you is thatched, thick with straw packed in layers to keep out the rain. It smells faintly of old grass, mould, and the smoke that rises constantly from the hearth. You sit up on your pallet, nothing more than a sack, stuffed with straw wand, stretched beneath the low ceiling. Your feet touch the cold, packed earth floor. There are no tiles, no boards, only hard soil beneath your toes. The hearth has burned low in the night. A few coals still glow faintly red, and you nudge them gently with an iron poker, adding dried twigs and kindling. Soon, smoke begins to curl upward again. The room fills with a sharp, acrid scent, not unpleasant, but strong wood smoke, ash, and the sourness of old air trapped through the night. You live with others' family, or perhaps even shared tenants. Privacy is a luxury reserved for nobility. Here, space is used efficiently. One room for living, sleeping, eating. In one corner, a wooden chest holds your spare, garment-simple woolen tunics. One pair of hose, a patched cloak. A single candle stub sits on a wooden shelf, saved for holy days or special meals. Most nights are lit only by the fire. Breakfast is not elaborate. You tear a piece from yesterday's coarse rye bread, perhaps soften it in watered ale or milk, if any is left. There are no forks, only your hands, and perhaps a dull knife used for everything, cutting bread, carving wood, cleaning fish. You eat quickly. Soon, the day's work begins. Outside, the village is stirring. The light is faint, filtered through mist and cloud. A few chickens cluck quietly, pecking at the ground. A neighbour's pig snorts as it roots in the mud. In the distance, someone leads an ox toward the field, the slow thud of hooves softened by earth still wet with dew. Your own task depends on your station. If you are bound to the land as a peasant, you must report to the manor's fields. The lord's domain takes priority. Perhaps 1 or 2 days a week are your own, but most of your labour serves another. You walk the dirt path toward the fields with a hoe slung over your shoulder, or perhaps a flail if it is harvest time. Your hands are calloused, your back used to the ache of constant toil. The sun will rise higher, and you will work until it sinks again. Meals are brief, taken in the fields. There is no real rest. If you are a craftsperson, say, a weaver or cooper, you might head to a workbench or shed. Here, you labor too, but with skill shaped over years. Patterns are memorized, tools passed down. Your trade is your identity, and though your earnings are modest, you are part of the economy that keeps the village functioning. You are known, respected in your own quiet way. Children, if old enough, have tasks of their own, carrying water from the well, watching geese, fetching firewood. Even at 7 or 8, they are folded into the rhythm of labor. There is no school knot unless the local priest offers rudimentary instruction. Reading is a rarity. Books are for monks and nobles. Throughout the day, the church bell sounds. Its tones are slow and heavy, not rushed. It marks the hours not in numbers, but in presence. You pause at the 6th bell for a midday prayer. Others kneel, faces smudged with soil, murmuring Latin words half understood but deeply felt. The weather shapes everything. A week of rain means the fields flood. A dry summer spells hunger. You talk often about the skies, the wind, the chance of frost. You are attuned to the land in a way forgotten by many centuries later. As evening falls, you return home. Your tunic is damp with sweat. The hearth is lit again, and a small stew bubbles, a humble mixture of barley, turnips, leeks, and perhaps a scrap of salted pork. The smell is earthy and comforting. You eat in near silence. Words are few after a day of labor. When darkness fully sets, the village becomes still. There are no street lamps, only the moon, stars, and the flickering of torches. You lie down once more on the straw pallet. The fire dims. The cottage creaks faintly in the wind. Your eyes close, not from leisure, but from necessity. And the Middle Ages fold around you once again, quiet, ancient, and unchanging. As the sun rises higher and your day unfolds in the fields or workshop, it becomes impossible to ignore the layered structure surrounding your existence. In the medieval world, society is not a flat plane, but a tall, unbending ladderone, whose rungs are determined not by merit or wealth alone, but by birth, oath, and custom. You occupy one of the lower steps, yet every part of your life is shaped by those who rest above. At the top of this social order sits the monarch, distant and near mythical. You may never see a king or queen, but their presence permeates everything from the taxes you pay to the wars your village must support. Below the throne, the nobility, the lords and barons hold land, in return for loyalty and military service. These lands, or fiefs, are then broken down further, entrusted to lesser nobles or knights. Each layer owes duties upward and receives obedience downward. It is a web of obligation, dense and intricate. You live on one of these lands manor, which is more than just a house. It is an economic unit, a judicial zone, a miniature world. The manor's lord might reside in a modest stone hall nearby, or might only visit seasonally, leaving a steward or bailiff to oversee affairs. His role is not merely symbolic. He holds power to fine, to order, to protect, and at timesto punish. You are not a slave, but you are not truly free either. Most likely, you are a villain or serf bound to the land by feudal law. You cannot leave without permission. You owe labor, not only on your own plot, but on the Lord's demesne. You pay in grain, in eggs, in chickens. Perhaps you owe a portion of your harvest, or a tithe to the church. Perhaps you must grind your flour in the Lord's mill, bake in his oven, press in his winepress, each with a fee. The system is rigid, but well understood. It has held villages together for centuries. And yet, for all the hierarchy, this world is also deeply local. Your village is your universe. You may never travel more than a few miles in your life. Roads are poor, sometimes nothing more than muddy tracks. News arrives slowly, carried by travelers or clerics, or by returning soldiers. When someone comes from another town, it is a quiet event. You listen, wide-eyed, as they speak of markets, of rumors from distant courts, of strange coins and customs. Knights, too, belong to this world. They are trained not only in arms but in loyalty. A knight owes his sword to a liege, and in return receives land, armor, and status. You might see a knight ride past your village's horse, tall and proud, armor gleaming dully beneath a worn surcoat. But he is not a wandering adventurer. He is part of the system, bound by code and contract. The lord may occasionally host a feast or a judgment. These are formal affairs. You do not sit beside him, but you might attend in the margins. The manor court decides small disputes: who owes what, who trespassed, who failed to complete their labour duties. Fines are imposed in pence or goods. The system is less about justice as you might understand it, and more about maintaining harmony, order, predictability. Religion is interwoven deeply into this structure. The church, too, owns land and wealth. Bishops hold vast estates. Monks manage fertile abbeys. The priest in your village, humble though he may appear, speaks with the authority of both God and Rome. His words guide your fears and hopes, from birth to burial. And through him, the village stays tethered not only to heaven, but to the larger machinery of faith and control. This order is comforting in its familiarity. Change is rare. Disruption is dangerous. Even rebellion, when it comes as in the peasant risings of England or France, is quickly crushed, its embers buried beneath the soil of tradition. You live within a lattice of duty and dependence, old and unyielding. The feudal world does not demand that you rise. It only asks that you endure, contribute, and remain. And in return, you are given identity, place, and a form of protection, however distant or conditional. Evening comes again. A bell tolls, deep and slow. You glance toward the manor on the hill, its outline dark against the fading sky. You know who you are and where you fit. It is not freedom in the modern sense, but it is structure. And in this age, structure is survival. As another morning breaks, with its same soft mist and distant tolling of bells, you prepare not for labour in the fields, but for something different. It is a feast, day one of many scattered through the medieval calendar. These sacred days offer a pause from toil, a rare moment to step into the deeper currents of belief and wonder that underlie the medieval world. You dress in your best tunic, perhaps recently washed in the stream and hung to dry in the sun. It is simple, but the effort matters. You walk slowly toward the village church, a small stone building with a wooden door and a single bell in its squat tower. Its walls are cool and slightly damp to the touch, and inside, the air is thick with the scent of wax, wood, and something older, something like time itself. You kneel on the stone floor, your head bowed beneath the gaze of saints painted long ago onto plaster. Their faces are faded, their colours dulled by candle smoke and centuries of devotion, but their presence is unmistakable. In the dim light, the priest chants Latin words you do not fully understand. Incense curls upward, and the sound of his voice rises and falls like a tide. This ritual is not meant to be explained, it is meant to be felt. In this age, the sacred is not distant or abstract. It is woven into daily life, into fields blessed before planting, into bread baked with reverence, into the rhythm of sunrise prayers and evening chimes. Heaven is not far away. It is above, just beyond the firmament, where angels sing and saints watch. The earth is a place of testing, toil, and waiting. You know of devils, too, not just as stories, but as real dangers. The devil lurks in temptation, in illness, in bad weather, in failed crops. He is not theatrical, but insidious. To be pious is not just to attend Masset, is to light candles for the dead, to confess sins regularly, to keep fasts, and observe saints' days. Your understanding of the world is deeply moral and deeply circular. Every life is judged. Every deed matters. Every soul is weighed. Occasionally a stranger comes to tone a friar on the road, or perhaps a wandering monk. These men carry tales and teachings, sometimes even relics, a fragment of a saint's bone, a piece of cloth said to have touched the Holy Land. You watch with awe, and maybe a little fear. These objects, though small, hold power. Touching one might bring healing. Failing to respect it might invite misfortune. You also live with mystery. There are no telescopes to study the stars, but the sky remains a source of wonder. The sun moves with purpose. The moon follows a known path. Eclipses are unsettling signs of divine displeasure. Comets are warnings. Time itself is sacred, organized around the liturgical year, which flows not with the logic of finance or secular months, but with the sacred cycle of birth, sacrifice, death, and rebirth. Medieval medicine, too, rests on mystery. Illness is explained through humour's blood, phlegm, yellow and black biland their balance. A fever might be treated with herbs, or leeches, or prayers. Disease is not just biological, but spiritual. A sinful life weakens the body. Pilgrimages are taken for healing. Some walk hundreds of miles, barefoot, to reach a shrine. Others wear charms or holy symbols, hoping to ward off death's shadow. Superstition blends with belief. A charm against the evil eye might hang beside a crucifix. A saint's name might be whispered when lightning strikes. You know that witches are feared people accused of unnatural knowledge, of communing with dark forces. They are rare, but when suspicion falls, it spreads quickly. Fear is both a private and public force. Still, faith brings comfort. The world is hard, but it is not senseless. Suffering has meaning. Trials test the soul. Death is not the end, but a passage. The cemetery beside the church is quiet. Its stones crooked and worn. You pass it daily, reminded not of despair but of continuity. The dead are prayed for. The living prepare. Life and afterlife are not separate. They are parts of a single divine story. As the feast day ends and the bells toll once more, you walk home under a velvet sky. Stars blink softly above, and the air smells of baked bread and wood smoke. The world feels both vast and contained. You do not know the names of galaxies or the principles of physics, but you know the constellations as stories, as signs, as companions. And in this moment, there is peace. The world is not explained, but it is ordered. You do not seek to control it, only to honor it. And as you lay down again beneath your thatched roof, the mystery remains comforting, ancient, and whole. The next time you leave your village, it is not for war or worship, but for trade. Word has spread that a fair is being held in a nearby town, an event rare enough to warrant travel. You rise before dawn, pack what you have, perhaps some woven cloth, a few dried apples, or a small sack of barley, and begin the journey on foot. The road is uneven, winding between hedgerows and over hills, but the excitement stirs something within you. The fair is not merely commerce, it is contact with a world beyond the fields and thatch. As you approach the town, the road thickens with people. Other villagers, peddlers, herdsmen guiding oxen, tinkers with carts of pots and tools. The town itself is modest by modern standards, but impressive in its compact density. Stone walls surround it. Gates stand open. The air changes as you enter, filled now with noise, movement, and the mingling scents of people, animals, cooked food, and dung. Stalls are set up in the square. Cloth flaps gently in the breeze. A tanner sells leather belts. A cooper displays barrels. A spice merchant, perhaps from far-off land shows, small packets of powders that seem impossibly fragrant. You see salt, honey, wool, pewterware, beeswax candles, and ink. Coins clink. Bartering fills the air. The local currency may not suffice. The town uses other measures, sometimes even foreign coinage. Weights are compared. Agreements are made with nods and handshakes. Towns in the medieval world are unique. They are not simply large villages. They are centers of chartered independence. Within their walls, people may be free, not in the modern sense, but free from certain obligations to rural lords. Many townspeople are artisans or merchants. They form guilds associations that control trade, set standards, protect members, the blacksmiths' guild, the weavers' guild, the masons. Guilds regulate prices, train apprentices, and even govern parts of town life. You may visit a friend or cousin who has left the manor to live here as a journeyman. He shares a small upstairs room above a shop, where he works long hours, dreams of becoming a master, and lives within the strict rhythm of guild rules. His life is still hard, but different. Less tied to the soil, more tied to craft and commerce. In the narrow alleys of the town, people bustle past one another. Some women wear linen coifs, some men walk barefoot, their feet hardened from labour. A small group of monks passes silently. Children dart between stalls. The town is not clean. Refuse is swept to the centre of the street, and waste is flung from windows. But it is vibrant, alive in a way the countryside is not. There is talk of news here. Word spreads faster. A merchant may speak of ships arriving at distant ports. There are rumours of new taxes, of wars on far borders, of the Pope issuing decrees. Perhaps even whisperings of invention, a watermill with improved gears, a new type of loom, or a manuscript copied with unusual speed. Though you don't fully understand it, the world is beginning very slowly to turn. And then there are the others, Jews, who often live in separate quarters, sometimes welcomed, often persecuted, foreigners who speak unfamiliar tongues, travelling minstrels who sing tales of kings and saints, or joke in ways that test the boundaries of propriety. You are exposed to a spectrum of people, traditions, and accents. It is both fascinating and strange. Towns are also places of justice. A mayor or council may sit in judgment here, rather than the local lord. There are stocks in the square for petty crimes. Justice is not always fair, but it is visible. The crowd gathers when someone is punished. You look away partly out of discomfort, partly from a quiet relief that it is not you. Before sunset, you begin the journey home. Your sack is lighter or heavier, depending on what you traded. Your feet are sore, but your mind is full. The town leaves its market's noise, its stories, its glimpse into another way of life. Back in your village, things remain the same, the rhythm, the labour, the quiet of nightfall. But you carry with you something intangible, an awareness that beyond the fields and chapel lies a world of movement, of ideas, of trade and talk and change. The medieval world, though slow, is not entirely still. You lie awake a little longer tonight, thinking of what you saw, what you heard, the flicker of a candle, the smell of ink, the way strangers spoke of far-off lands, as if they were real places, not just names in a prayer book. Change is coming, though it does not shout. It arrives slowly, with the quiet rustle of parchment, the squeak of a cartwheel, the whisper of coin against palm. Not every season in the medieval world is peaceful. As you pass through the familiar rhythms of planting and harvest, of feast days and Sunday masses, there comes a time when the quiet is interrupted, not by weather or illness, but by war. It does not arrive all at once. At first, there are whisper traders passing through the village with talk of disputes between lords, of border skirmishes, of a king calling banners to muster troops. You hear of battles fought miles away, perhaps even on another island or continent. But soon enough, those distant rumours draw nearer. The bailiff arrives one day with new orders. The manor must send men and grain. If you are a freeman, or of age and able-bodied, your name may be chosen. If not yours, then your neighbours or your cousins. The lord is obligated to supply a certain number of soldiers, and the village must do its part. Preparation is hurried. There is no standing army, only levies raised when needed. Some among you are given rough tunics with a cross stitched across the chest. Others are handed spears or bows, sometimes borrowed from those with better arms. Armour, if any, is piecemeal, perhaps a helmet, perhaps a leather jerkin. Most go to war in what they have. You may not fight yourself, but the effects ripple outward. With men gone, fields lie untended. Children are pressed into labour. The village grows quieter, not in peace, but in absence. And there is fear not just of violence, but of what follows. famine, disease, lawlessness. If the fighting comes near, it is more frightening still. War in the medieval world is not orderly. Battles are brutal, but short. Sieges are long and devastating. Castles become centers of resistance or conquest. Villages may be burned to deny supplies to the enemy. Crops trampled, wells fouled, churches looted. Even if spared the sword, the land suffers. Sometimes, soldiers return. They are thinner, quieter, older in the eyes. Some carry wounds bandaged, healed poorly, or invisible. Others do not return at all. Their absence lingers in empty chairs, in unworked fields, in the quiet sorrow of widows. There is no official notice, only word, passed from mouth to mouth, and the long silence that follows. Kings fight over land, over succession, over claims. Sometimes they go to war under the banner of faith called crusades. These conflicts send thousands across continents to fight in places most could not point to on a map. The church blesses these wars. Indulgences are granted. But the distance does not lessen the burden for those left behind. You may hear the term chevauchea raid, designed to terrorize, to strip the land of resources, to force surrender through exhaustion. These tactics do not spare the common folk. They are designed to break morale, and they do. And yet, even in wartime, the world does not stop. Babies are born, bread is baked, bells continue to ring. It is a strange coexistence of fear and familiarity. You learn to adapt, to hope quietly that your village is too small to be noticed, too poor to be worth looting. Sometimes, noble banners pass by the edge of the fields, a small army marching under coloured sigils, led by mounted men in gleaming chainmail. You stand back, eyes lowered. They are both protectors and threats. War brings prestige to some, ruin to others. There are those who profit, armourers, smiths, suppliers of grain. But they are few. Most suffer. Inflation follows, war coin is debased, prices rise, taxes increase. You may be required to pay more to support the ongoing campaign, even if your own family starves. And yet, the medieval mind absorbs these hardships as part of the divine order. War, like plague or flood, is seen as a triala scourge permitted by God, perhaps as punishment for sin. You pray harder, you light candles for the dead, and when peace finally comes, it is not a triumphant cry, but a quiet breath of relief. Years pass, and scars remain. A burned field, slowly replanted, a family diminished, but life, as always, resumes. The soil does not remember the battles. The trees grow anew, and so do you, more cautious, more silent, but still standing. As you lay down in your home once more, the wind howls faintly outside. You think of those who never returned, and in the firelight, you feel again the quiet strength that carries the village through all things. Not valor, not glory, but endurance. While the grand events of the medieval world, the wars, the courts, the trade routes might belong to kings and knights, daily life is shaped more intimately by quieter roles, those carried out within the home, the workshop, the field, and the hearth. In this segment of the journey, you turn inward, toward the rhythms of family, labor, and identity, especially as they unfold through the expectations of gender. If you are a man in this world, your role is primarily shaped by land and labor. Whether you are a farmer, a shepherd, or a carpenter, your body is expected to work. You may also be required to defend the manor, to bear arms when summoned, or to serve on juries and village councils. Even the youngest boys are taught early to mimic the gestures of labor. Strength, reliability, and obedience mark the ideal. You learn from your father not in books, but in repeated motions. You watch how he hitches the oxen, how he mends a fence, how he bows before the priest. Boys follow in footsteps rather than passions. And yet, there is pride in doing what must be done, in continuing the lineage of toil that stretches back unbroken. If you are a woman, your path is no less essential now. any less constrained. From a young age, you are taught to spin, to sew, to tend to the hearth, and to care for siblings. Marriage is not a romantic aspiration, it is a practical arrangement, shaped by land, labor, and alliances. A girl may be wed by her mid-teens, often to someone chosen by family or lord. Your dowry, however modest, is carefully negotiated. It might be a goat, or a small plot of land, or a fine woolen blanket. As a wife, you manage a household. You bake bread, churn butter, fetch water, and raise children. You might also help with planting or harvesting, depending on need. If your husband is away at war or market, you assume his duties as well. There is little time for leisure, and even less for complaint. Childbirth is both sacred and perilous. Midwives attend to you, often older women with deep knowledge passed from experience. There are herbs to ease pain, prayers to protect against miscarriage, and talismans to ward off death. Yet the risks remain high. Many women die in labor. Many children do not survive infancy. Each birth is a fragile miracle. Women are not silent. They speak, sing, barter, and sometimes challenge. In towns, widows often take over their husbands' businesses. In some guilds, women hold apprenticeships. In convents, they find lives of study, prayer, and service-escaping marriage altogether. Nuns may teach, copy manuscripts, or manage lands. Their authority, though circumscribed, is real. Children are folded quickly into this tapestry. From as early as 5 or 6, they are set to tasks. Boys may herd animals, gather wood, or serve apprenticeships. Girls help in the kitchen, spin flax, or watch over younger siblings. Play is brief, improvised sticks for swords, stones for toys. Childhood is not a time of innocence, but a short prelude to responsibility. Elders are respected, not because they hold formal power, but because they carry memory, a grandmother's tales, a grandfather's advice. In a world where little is written down, the old are living libraries. Their stories bind the village, teach its lessons, carry its warnings. Even within this structure, variations abound. In wealthier households, there are servants. In towns, women may own inns or brew ale. On the fringes of society, outcasts live different lepers, beggars, those considered unclean or cursed. Some live alone in huts, others wander, existing through alms or the charity of the church. The church itself promotes clear gender roles. Women are to be obedient, chaste, pious. Men are to lead, protect, and provide. The Virgin Mary is revered, but Eve is remembered as the one who tempted. Sermons often repeat these lessons, reinforcing them not only through scripture, but through sculpture and song. Despite all, life persists through cooperation. A family is a unit of survival. Each member, regardless of age or gender, contributes. Evenings are often spent together repairing tools, mending garments, or simply resting near the fire, sharing what little warmth and comfort can be found. As night falls and the tasks are set aside, you sit with your family under the low timbered ceiling. A candle flickers. Someone hums a hymn. The air is filled with the quiet closeness of shared fatigue, of hands that ache but hearts that endure. There is no celebration of independence, no culture of individual ambition. What matters most is continuity, the keeping of customs, the passing down of names, the survival of your kin. In this, you find meaning. In this, you belong. As the candlelight dims and another day ends, you come to appreciate that in the medieval world, survival is not guaranteed. It is earned. One meal, one breath, one season at a time. This segment invites you to settle deeper into the textures of daily life. The food you eat, the filth you manage, and the ever-present threat of illness. You begin each morning with hunger. Breakfast, if it exists, light. Perhaps a bit of coarse rye bread, tough from yesterday's hearth, dipped in a thin ale or warm milk. For most people, especially in the countryside, meals are plain and predictable. Bread forms the foundation, heavy and dark, made from barley, rye or oats. Wheat is rare, a grain of the rich. A pottage simmers most days in the single iron pot hanging over the fire. It is a stew without meat, unless it's a special occasion. Turnips, onions, leeks, and sometimes cabbage all boiled until soft, flavoured with herbs grown near the door. Occasionally you might add a piece of salt pork or a dried fish, but meat is expensive and seldom enjoyed by commoners. You eat with your hands, from a shared wooden bowl, using chunks of bread to scoop what you can. There are no forks. Knives are used more for preparation than for eating. Drinking vessels are wooden or pottery, often chipped. Everything is reused. Waste is not a luxury the village can afford. Clean water is a concern. You draw it from a well or a nearby stream. But streams are easily fouled by animals, by waste, by runoff from the fields. Boiling is common, but not always practiced. As a result, illness lingers constantly in the background. There is little understanding of germs or sanitation. You sweep your floor with a broom made of twigs, but the floor itself is packed dirt, sprinkled with rushes or herbs to mask odours. Lice and fleas are companions. Clothes are not washed frequently, and when they are, it's done with cold water and lye soap that stings the skin. Bathing is rare. Some towns have public bathhouse simple wooden structures with heated tubs, but these are disappearing as concerns about morality and sin begin to rise. In the countryside, bathing might mean a cold splash in a stream or a basin warmed by the fire. You wipe rather than wash, and perfumes or sweet-smelling herbs are used more to cover than to cleanse. Toilets are rudimentary. In the village, a simple pit behind the house suffices. In towns, waste is sometimes thrown into the street with a warning cry. In castles, stone garderobes empty into moats or cesspits. Flies are constant, smells are stronger, but accepted. This is simply how the world is. When illness comes, it does so swiftly and often silently. A fever might pass or kill. A cough may linger for months. There are no hospitals, except in some towns and monasteries. Monks may offer herbs or prayer, but cures are uncertain. The body is a mystery, its workings ascribed to humours or to divine will. You may have heard of plague-black boils, sudden death. If it has visited your lifetime, it left a mark. Perhaps a third of your village died, perhaps your own family. Graves were dug quickly, and mass burials common. The memory lingers, not only in minds, but in behaviours, in superstitions, in prayers, said twice instead of once. Teeth rot early, eyes dim before their time. A broken leg can mean death. Childbirth remains one of the most dangerous acts a woman can face. And yet, people do not despair. These dangers are accepted, not with resignation, but with reverence. Life is understood to be fragile. Each day is a gift. Suffering is part of the human story. The wealthy fare slightly better. They eat more meat, drink finer wine, and occasionally consult physicians who read Latin texts and prescribe purges, bloodletting, or astrological guidance. But even kings fall ill. Even queens die in chilled bed. No one is entirely safe. Despite it all, you persist. You find joy in small things: a loaf baked golden, a sunny morning without frost, a neighbour's kind word. Children laugh, elders tell stories, and when the church bell tolls, signalling the end of another villager's life, you bow your head, murmur a prayer, and return to your labour. The medieval world is not pristine. It is not sterile or easy, but it is deeply human. The dirt beneath your fingernails tells a story. So does the scar on your arm or the ache in your joints. These are not burdens, they are badges of existence. As you fall asleep once again, wrapped in wool and straw, you feel the weight of the day's labour in your bones. But also, strangely, a kind of peace. You are part of a world that does not seek comfort, it seeks continuity. And in that search, there is something timeless. In the world you now inhabit, time does not tick from second to second as it does in your modern life. Here, It moves slowly, patiently, shaped by sun and shadow, by the turning of the seasons, and by the rituals of the church. Days stretch long, or contract with the light. Weeks pass without names. Years slide forward, not by calendars pinned to walls, but by harvests, deaths, and births. There is no universal clock. The idea of standardized hours lies centuries ahead. Instead, your day is measured by the rising and setting of the sun, the ringing of church bells, and the progression of tasks. Morning begins with first light. Noon is not 12 o'clock, it is the sixth bell, the midpoint between matins and vespers. Evening begins not with sunset, but with the call to evening prayer. In the monastery, time is sacred and ordered. Monks rise before dawn to chant the hours. Lauds, prime, terce, sext, nun, vespers, compline each a musical offering, each a marker of the divine rhythm that underpins all earthly labour. You may not live within stone cloisters, but this rhythm shapes your life too. The bell from the church calls you to prayer, to rest, to reflect. The year is divided not by months so much as by feasts and labours. Candlemas, Lady Day, Michaelmas, and All Hallows. You track time through saints' days and holy festivals. Lent signals restraint, Advent expectation. Between these, the fields demand their own attention. Spring begins with ploughing. The soil, damp and dark, is turned by oxen moving slowly under a grey sky. Seeds are sown in hope, though frost may yet return. You listen to the wind, study the flight of birds, judge the softness of the earth beneath your feet. Nature is both teacher and test. Summer brings labor, long hours under a hot sun, tending to growing crops, repairing roofs, cutting wood, weeding gardens. You rise early and rest only briefly. The days seem endless, yet each is fleeting. If the sun sets red, tomorrow will be dry. If the cattle lie down early, rain may come. Autumn is harvest. It is the most important time, the most anxious. Grain must be cut, threshed, winnowed, and stored. Apples gathered, nuts dried, roots dug. If the harvest is poor, hunger will follow. If it is good, the village will survive the winter. It is not a celebration in itself, but survival earned. And then winter arrives. Cold seeps into every crack of your cottage. The hearth burns low, and firewood must be rationed. Days are short. Outside, frost coats the fields. Animals huddle in barns if you have them. You wear the same cloak day after day. Your fingers are red and stiff. Meals grow smaller. There is no fresh milk, no green shoots, only salted meat and root vegetables. Yet, winter also brings stillness. You find time to mend clothes, to share stories by the fire, to carve small objects, or perhaps to visit neighbours. The church becomes a refuge. Midnight Mass on Christmas Eve feels magical, lit by candles, filled with songs you have known since childhood. The cold air in your lungs, the silence outside, the warmth of many voices rising together, it all feels sacred. Years are marked more by events than by dates. A particularly harsh winter, a summer drought, the year the miller died, the year the bishop visited. These are the milestones. If someone asks your age, you may not answer with certainty. You remember, instead, what happened the year you were born. The comet, the fire, the war. You may never travel far, but time still moves within you. You age, your children grow, you bury your parents in the churchyard, mark the graves with stones, and in time, you begin to speak of how things were, passing your memories to the next. The medieval world does not rush. It endures. Change comes slowly, often imperceptibly. A new tool in the field. A rumour of clocks being built in a distant city. A strange new calendar proposed by a scholar no one has seen. But in your life the rhythm remains. Plough, plant, harvest, rest, birth, labour, prayer, death, feast days and fasts, work days and holy days. The church bell rings. Smoke curls from chimneys. The seasons repeat, not as sameness, but as song. As you lie once again beneath your thatched roof, the wind stirs the eaves. Outside, the moon casts silver light over the sleeping village. Somewhere, a dog barks once, then falls silent. You feel time not as pressure, but as presence. A slow river, carrying you gently forward. You close your eyes and sleep not to escape the day, but to continue it, in dreams, in peace, in rhythm. And now, as the soft glow of dawn seems to rise once more in the distant cenote above your thatched roof, but behind closed eyelids you begin to feel the boundaries of that medieval world slowly dissolve. The sounds of the rooster, the rustling rushes beneath your feet, the distant tolling of the church bell, they all begin to fade into the quieter hum of modern life beyond. Yet even as the dream recedes, you carry it with you. A gentle residue of earth and smoke, of flickering candlelight, and the slow rhythm of a world long past. You remember how it felt to live by the land's demands, to know the weight of every season, the silence between prayers, the warmth of firelight after hours of toil. You remember a life of limits, but also of connection. The Middle Ages are often imagined as dark, primitive, even brutal. And yet, the deeper you walked into that world, the more it revealed itself not in the drama of castles and crusades, but in the quiet dignity of ordinary people. Those who tilled the soil, raised children, made bread, sang hymns, stitched garments, and buried their dead with care. People who asked the same quiet questions you do today about meaning, about safety, about love, about what lies beyond the stars. They lived in a world without electricity, without machines, without medicine as we know it, but they were not without beauty, or wisdom, or joy. Theirs was a life of survival, yes, but also of sacred rhythms, of shared burdens, of community built not by choice, but by necessity. And perhaps, as you return from this long journey, you carry a fragment of that understanding with you, a new awareness of the comforts around you, the ease of clean water, of light at the flick of a switch, of solitude when desired, and rest without fear. But maybe, too, you feel a touch of longing for slowness, for the weight of time that doesn't rush, for the scent of wood smoke after dusk, and for the stillness of a star-filled sky, uninterrupted by anything man-made. The Middle Ages are far behind us in years, but beneath cities, beneath fields, beneath glass and concrete, the past still lives layered in the soil, in the stones of old churches, in the words of old songs. It lives in how we bury our dead, in how we gather for festivals, in how we seek peace in prayer or poetry. As you settle now into your pillow, feel that distant past, not as something foreign, but as something gently familiar, a slower world, yes, but not a lesser one, a world that, for a short while, you remembered how to inhabit. Let your breath slow, let your thoughts drift, and if dreams come, may they carry the soft scent of damp earth, the glow of a fire at night, and the hush of bells in a distant medieval morning. Sleep well, and thank you for walking through time.